Hey guys, today we're going to talk about corrective exercise, what it is, what it encompasses, and how to start setting up your own program. So with everything that we've learned so far, this is kind of the crux of everything. So we've learned about the anatomy and all those. When you learn about the anatomy and the postural distortions and you set up your own movement assessment, now you actually have an idea of which muscles are tight, which are weak, which muscles are inhibited, AKA not allowed to do their job, and which muscles are overactive. So corrective exercise is where we take that knowledge and we put it into practice. We put it into effect. So what we do, it's 4 things: SMR, which is self-myofascial release or self-massage, stretching and or mobilization, activation, and integration. So the self-massage is for the tight muscles. The stretching is for the tight muscles. The mobilization is for whatever was inhibited, depending on if it's a joint or something like that, or impingement stuff like the distractions. So anytime you have a joint that gets stuck, distractions are great for that. Mobilization is also things like when you touch your knee to the wall and do a active stretch. After you've done a passive stretch, it's the same kind of thing. It's neuromuscular re-education, which we don't have to get into all of that, but that's what mobilization is. And then activation is what we went over last week. And that's where you activate. I don't want to say turn on because they never turn off, but you pay attention to, you really actually activate the weaker muscles. So those muscles that have been inhibited by the stronger muscles, now that the stronger muscles or the overactive muscles have been, quote, turned off, not literally, but they've been calmed down. They've got a Mai Tai sitting on the beach. They're chilling, right? Now these guys are in the hotel getting ready to clean the room. They've just been waiting for the go. So now they got the go and they're going to turn on. So that's what activation is. And then integration is where we integrate these movements, these specific movements for these body parts that have been inhibited and or I forget the other one, overactive, underactive. We integrate that into a full body movement because, as you remember, the body does not work in isolation. So for example, this is an easy one. Say you've got pain behind the shoulder blade back here. As we have learned, if you have upper cross syndrome, which is where you go like this, and or forward head posture, just depending. You can also not have so much of forward head posture, but upper cross, where this is tight, pulling you this way. Now this is stretched and weak, it's mad, right? Weak, weak, tight, tight, makes an X. So if that's what you've got and you've got pain back here, we can deduce or make a really pretty educated guess that what that means is these muscles are tight, and these muscles are weak. So what do? What do you do with the strong muscles? You take you massage them first. You look for those trigger points, hence why we got that app, right? So if it's for your chest, you're going to look for tender points here, or you find the collarbone, go down a little bit and over. So you're going to find those tender points in here in the chest. You're going to press on them to relax them. You're going to follow it up with a stretch for the muscle that was tight. Okay, then you're going to follow that up with an activation exercise. So think about where the pain is. The pain is right behind the shoulder blade. What muscles are right behind the shoulder blade? The rhomboids. What do the rhomboids do? The rhomboids bring your shoulder blades together. What's also back there? Mid traps. Mid traps also bring your shoulder blades together. What else is back there? Levators. The levators actually, they elevate. So if you have elevation, guess what? They're probably overworking. They start here, but they elevate. So would you stretch those or would you activate those? Those actually, I know very few people who need their levators activated. They're usually overactive. So that's one where you would stretch those, but we're not doing that. So we're not thinking about that. If we're thinking here, not up here, but here, we're going to say we can safely deduce that mid traps and rhomboids especially are weak. What else gets stretched when you go this way? Maybe the rear muscles of the rotator cuff, right? So what would be the opposite of being pulled forward? Going back. So what motion do you make when you go back? You externally rotate, you squeeze the shoulder blades together. You can do a prone T. You can do a scarecrow. You can do some external rotations. You can do all kinds of things. Those are 3 examples. I want you to come up with another exercise, just based, you can even make it up, but what's something that you can do that activates those muscles back there that causes you to pull the shoulder blades together, okay? That's your activation exercise. And when it comes to corrective exercise, we've got something called tempo. You wanna go at 2-2-4 tempo. So say we're doing a prone T, okay? What you're gonna do is you're gonna come back for 2, hold for 2, return for 4. So it's, if we're going against gravity, we're going to take that, the against gravity, we call that the negative. And I always get confused with concentric and eccentric. And in the interest of keeping this simple, we're just going to say against gravity or with gravity. So I always forget which is which, and I don't want to be wrong. So if we're going back, you're going to squeeze back for a 2 count. 1, 2, hold, 2. When you come back forward, you're still squeezing. 1, 2, 3, 4. In other words, you're not going to go, oh. Right? You can see like my entire body shifted. When I went from here to here, it did not. When I go from here to, and I let go, it does. Remember the basics of form? Okay, so that gets into other things. Integration is where you we haven't gotten to this yet, but integration is where you integrate that movement into a whole body exercise. So what would that be? An example would be a plank or a seated row or some kind of rowing maneuver. So like a row, this is being stretched while this is being squeezed. A plank is going to be integrated because you get your core engaged, and think like what muscles connect to the muscles you just activated, and what muscles connect to, well, basically the whole area, right? So a plank, you're going to get the serratus involved. You're going to have to, this one now actually has a chance to hold you. So if you do a plank and you do it like this, we just did the opposite. So my favorite would be, you're going to do like this, then I'm going to actually put you into like a squat to a row. Why? Because we want lower body, upper body. So what I want you to do, you don't have to come up with the exact right answer. I just want you to put down an answer. So I want you to name a muscle imbalance. It can be one that you have or someone else has, it doesn't matter. Name a muscle imbalance. Name the muscles that are overactive and the muscles that are probably underactive. And then I want you to put your protocol down for what you would do to address that. Let's do another one. So let's say we've got this forward head posture going on. So you've got somebody who does this, but doesn't roll around forward. So they just do this, it's a forward head posture. What do we got? Oh, guess what's also gonna probably happen? If they're like this, they're probably not gonna go very high with their arms, right? This is really hard to do. You'll notice, just try it with me. So if you lift your arm and your head is back, you've got a lot more motion. Your head is here, it's really hard. What's stuck? These muscles are stuck, they're holding. All of this you'll feel is tight. So let's say in your movement assessment, you found that you couldn't lift your arm very far, right? And you noticed you had forward head posture. So you can just put your hand in this area. What's tight? Front delts, upper traps. What else? We can just go with those 2 for now. So we've got upper traps and the front delts, right? All of this right here, these things. We're just going to say that to start. So what is the opposite of that? So upper traps, what's the opposite? Lower traps, maybe middle traps. So upper does this, lower and mid do that, okay? What about front delt? What's opposite? Rear delt. Here's another thing to think about. Instead of just thinking what's the opposing muscle, think about the direction you're trying to go. So if we're going this way, we want to go this way, but I'm also, if I can't lift here, what do I need to do? If this is too tight, what's underneath? Serratus, your serratus anterior. So what we can deduce from this, if you're trying to lift your arm and you're this way, so we know we've got to relax the upper traps. We've got to relax the front delt. So you can do some self-massage with your fingers or a ball like we showed in the video on your upper traps. You can use a ball right here. You're going to follow that up with an upper trap stretch and an anterior delt, front delt stretch, bicep stretch. And then what are you going to do? We're going to add in an activation exercise. What were the weak muscles we just identified? Serratus anterior. We can throw in a serratus wall slide. We can throw in prone Ys. That's where you pull down and lift up. You can do those just normally without having to go prone just to start, because they're hard. What else do we say? Oh, and then those would be your activation. What do we do to integrate? Chin tuck. Right? So if you see, like I'm here, chin tuck would be a good full area for that chin tuck. Scapular wall squeezes, or you could even do a dead bug, believe it or not, a dead bug with a band going this way. Why? Because now you're pulling your shoulder down and you're pulling back. So we're activating serratus and we're activating lower trap. So that one's a little more complicated than I thought. But I mean, if you think we've got, don't just think front to back, also think vertically. Okay, so what up here is overactive and what down here is underactive. Generally, your underactive muscles are going to be your serratus anterior, your TDA, your low traps, your mid traps, your rhomboids, the external rotators of the rotator cuff. Depending on what instrument you play, might be the internal rotators if you tend to be externally rotated on one side a lot. So those are the big ones. And then we come down to the low back. There's a low back ones, the ones that tend to be tight. You've got your hip flexors and your erector spinae. What tends to be weak? Think that lower cross. TVA, glutes. Hamstrings tend to be stretched. Why are hamstrings stretched and they hurt? Because they're stretched from that lower cross syndrome. Not always, but they can be. And almost everybody's calves are tight. So that contributes to all kinds of stuff. So your homework to complete this module is, I want you, like I said before, I want you to identify a muscle imbalance. And if you have not done the module on, or the call we did the other day on coming up with your own words, I forgot, your own muscle imbalance chart. Why can I not remember the name of this all of a sudden? If you've not done that exercise, go do it first. Then I want you to think about some common muscle imbalances, can be from any of the structural ones we've already done, or something that you've seen just from a student or yourself. Name that muscle imbalance. Name the muscles you think are tight. Name the muscles you think are weak or inhibited. Then I want you to come up with a plan. So you're going to do either we're going to do SMR for what's tight. We're going to massage what's tight. Then we're going to stretch what's tight. Then we're going to activate what's weak. Then we're going to integrate it together. Okay. Yeah, that's it. So have fun.